Like it or not, we're seeing an increase of extreme weather events and storms. Whatever the cause and whatever the event, it's important to be prepared for such eventualities. These storms can cause power outages and more, and they can also cut you off from accessing services and getting things like food and water from outside your home. Today, I want to talk about three important bases that you can cover to make sure that you yourself are covered for any summer storms. Let's get into it. If you don't know me, I'm Spencer, and I like to talk about simple living, frugality, and ways to cut down on your technology usage, sometimes by using other technologies. So throughout the world, we're seeing various communities being affected by extreme weather events. Whether it's heat or floods or tornadoes or hurricanes or tsunamis, there's a lot of things going on. I don't think of myself as a prepper or anything like that, but I do think that it is important for the everyday citizen to just be prepared, at least cover themselves off for 72 hours of maybe a power outage or something like that, just so that you're not being a burden on the emergency services that are actually responding to health emergencies and other things like that. The reality is that as climate change fuels more and more storms, it's important to have a plan in place. So on my channel, I talk a lot about simple living, frugality, and technology, but I also feel quite strongly about self-reliance, resilience, and these things are also key to being prepared. In my life, I've seen a decent amount of power outages, sometimes just little flashes, but also bigger outages that could last for days to up to even a week. A friend of mine who lives in Nova Scotia has been experiencing a ton of power outages over the last few years, from different hurricanes hitting the East Coast to just big winter storms knocking out power for days at a time, sometimes even weeks. You just can't be sure. You're going to have to feel these tips out and how much you really need to implement them based on how much that you think your area is going to experience. If you live somewhere that frequently does experience power outages, then maybe you want to stretch this out a little bit farther in order to cover you for a longer period of time. But if that's not very common where you live, then just adjust accordingly. But regardless, I think these three different areas are important for everyone to have covered in some respect, because even if a smaller power outage occurs just for a few hours, you know that you have yourself covered to handle it comfortably. So let's get into number one. One of the biggest things you need to have covered is a food supply. Now, I'm sure you have food in your house, of course, but if your power goes out, your fridge dies, and your food spoils, then what are you going to do? I think it's important to have a good little collection of canned goods that you can just pop open whenever you need to. They have a really long shelf life, and they're going to serve you in those times. This doesn't have to be astronaut food or army rations either. It can just be the standard canned goods that you would normally have in your house. You just have a few extra items that you keep aside just in case. If you do want to have fun with it and you want to have some army rations on the other hand, that's pretty fun as well. I have a couple of army rations that I got from a local army surplus store, which I just wanted to try, but I also thought having a couple of them around wouldn't be too bad in case we had an extended outage. It would make it a little bit more fun to cover my meals, and I also know that those meals can be heated using the included pack inside. And that moves on to kind of the second element of number one, which is you need to have a good way to cook your food as well. If the power goes out, most likely your appliances won't work, so you might have some super nice meal in the fridge, but you're not able to heat it up in any way. A great and readily available solution, which you might already have, is just the standard propane camp stove. I have one of these for when I go camping. It's just a 2-burner propane camp stove, and it would be a great option if I wanted to heat up my food and the power was out. If you have cast iron pans or something like that, you could also use your barbecue as an oven as well. Just put your food in the pan and stick that on the barbecue and you're good to go. Regardless, it's just great to have a plan in place of if the power was out for a day or two, what food would I eat and how would I cook that? All right, so moving on to the second base that you need to have covered for any sort of storm or outage is just a solution for getting water. Obviously, we need water to live. People can only go, I think, 3 days without water, and it wouldn't be a great 3 days. So I think just making sure you have a source of water that's available to you, whether the power is on or whether the power is off, is a great way to go. Most of the time when the power goes out, the water is still available from your tap, but water is pumped electronically, so that also could go down as well. Luckily, there's a lot of ways which you can be prepared for this and be able to have water for a day or two should you need it. And that could just be by buying one of those 24 packs of plastic water bottles, just keeping it in your house just in case. I'm not a fan of plastic water bottles. I don't like all the waste that comes from plastic water bottles, but I think if you just bought one 24 pack and you just kept it in your house just because of the shelf life of those things, I don't think it's that big of a deal if you're consuming it that infrequently and just changing it out every couple of years, because that's one of the best solutions solutions to store water long term. Alternatively, if you know that a storm is coming, you have a little bit of warning, you could also just fill up some large jugs of water just in case the water does stop pumping, that you'd have some set aside. I have like a camping water jug which holds a few liters of water. It's called a Bubba. It has like a little spout for dispensing it into a water bottle. I just use it when I go camping. I fill it up with water and just bring it with me so I don't have to go find water if I'm just going away for a day or so. In the past, that's what I've used. If a storm was coming and I wanted to make sure I had water, I would just fill that thing up at the sink and put it aside just in case. Now that I'm living with my girlfriend, we actually have a Berkey water filter, which is a great solution as well. If you had access to water but you weren't certain that it was clean, you could pour that through the Berkey. It would clean it for you and you could drink that. But what we mainly do is just make sure that that thing is topped up. So we have a few liters of water that are just kind of already stored, even if the water went off. So if you have some sort of water purification system like that, where you're gonna have a few liters always in that urn thing, just waiting to be dispensed, then you're already gonna be covered for this. So you don't have to worry too much. But food and water, those are very important things. And now moving on to the third and final thing that you can do just to be a little bit more prepared for summer storms and outages, and that is just getting a power bank of some kind to keep your devices running. This is a helpful solution from the standpoint of safety and comfort as well. If phones are still working and you're able to make a call to somebody, it's important to have your phone working just so you can still have that line of communication. But also, if you're just hunkered down during a storm and your power is out and you want to watch a movie or have some lights on or something like that, you can then use that power bank to provide power for those things. In the case of light, busting out something like an oil lamp or candles is also fun, but I do have a USB powered light bulb which draws very little and provides a lot of light output for what it is, that I picked up on Amazon. I'll link that in the description. And I also have a really good, just basic power bank that I think can recharge my phone like, I want to say like 30 times, or my laptop is like 10 times or 15 times. It can basically cover you on those smaller devices for a number of days if required. The power station that I have, I don't even know if it's still available to buy on Amazon. If it is, I'll link it down in the description. I bought it a couple of years ago for doing camping, but also for summer outages. For safety reasons, maybe you also have something like a CPAP machine or another medical device which you need to have running during the day or during the night. Having a power bank or some other device will just give you that peace of mind knowing that those devices are still going to work no matter what happens. So that's just about it for today, guys. Just 3 key points which I think you need to have covered to protect yourself during any sort of summer power outages or big storms. Now, potentially you're going to go through the whole summer not dealing with any power outages or large storms, but it's best to have those things and not need it than to need it and not have it, as they always say. What did you think of this video? Have you experienced any large power outages or storms where you were either prepared or maybe you weren't prepared and then you decided to get prepared after the fact? Let me know in the comments section because I'd be happy to hear your experience. Thanks very much for watching, folks, and I'll see you in the next video.